That's Just TMI with your hosts, Dee and Sir Dre.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Dee from That's Just TMI, and I'm here in Mississauga with Vennassa. Vennassa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So where do I start? Let's start off with the professional part of it.
Yes.
I'm a mental health clinician, and I am practicing as a psychotherapist currently. I consider myself to be a mental health advocate. I like all things mental health. Mm-hmm. I like the psychoeducation part of it, just teaching people about how to take care of themselves from a mental health perspective, and also just to bring and shed a little bit more light on the importance of having a good mental health.
And that is very important, especially in COVID. So we did a segment on self-care earlier, and I felt like this would be a great segment to go into because mental health is something that's seen as taboo within our Black community a lot of times. And not just that, the importance of mental health in this time with COVID, it's so important.
It is. It is.
And I kind of like the idea. Some people say for their mental health, they do retail therapy. They go to the mall, they shop, and then when the malls were closed, they shopped online, and packages are coming in left, right, and center. I'm not going to say that was me, but you should see the boxes at my house. Right? So I want to, let's talk about mental health.
Sure, let's do it.
What is mental health?
Well, I like the fact that you ask what is mental health, because a lot of people, when they hear the term mental health, they automatically think that it means something negative. And it doesn't. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness.
Ooh.
Yes.
I've never actually thought of that.
No, there is.
Because people usually just put it all in the one category, mental health.
Which is why there's such a sour stigma associated with it. So when you think about mental health, you're just pretty much talking about the way in which you feel, you think, you behave. So it's that psychological part of your being.
Yes.
Right? So that's your mental health. Mental illness is something different. Mental illness is when there is clearly an issue that's affecting your mental state. So it's affecting the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. And when that happens, that's when you will hear people say, oh, you need to see a therapist. But you don't only need to see a therapist if you have a mental illness. You can see a therapist just to take care of your mental health.
So how many of you knew that there was a difference between mental health and mental illness?
Yes, there is.
Because within our community, I don't think people have identified that this is mental health, this is mental illness. I feel like you're saying everything is just clumped together and then it's just seen as negative.
Exactly. So we all have mental health. We all identify with different parts of our mental health, but not everyone is affected with a mental illness.
Yes. So now, why is it important to take care of your mental health?
It's just like your physical health, right? It's just like your financial health, your spiritual health, whatever health you ascribe to. It's just as important. So if you are not taking care of it, you are leaving it to deplete. So you want to take care of it so you maintain a good health. And
so it's overall.
Right, overall. So like if you're feeling sick, you probably say, I wonder what's wrong with me. And you probably say, let me see a doctor, right? So you're taking care, you're paying attention to some symptoms you're seeing.
Yes.
So it's important to take care of our mental health. We have to. It's a part of us.
It is
we live and breathe it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, I'm still stuck on the mental health versus mental illness because it's something we should have known, but it's not necessarily clarified in our day-to-day living.
It's not.
Wow. So you mentioned that if we're sick, we go to a doctor. If we're having any mental health problems, we should see a therapist or even a doctor.
See a doctor. Doctors make recommendations to therapists, to counselors, psychologists,
and that's something that's also seen as negative, to go to therapy.
Right.
People don't often see therapy. The only therapy I think people see as positive is physiotherapy. And that's most of the time.
And that happens,
massages.
right? And that happens after something has been identified as something is wrong.
Yes.
But with going to therapy regarding mental health, you don't have to go see a therapist because you have an illness or there is something clearly wrong. You can go to see a therapist for maintenance or for stability, right? Let's say you know that in 3 months you will be experiencing some challenging times. You want to get some coping skills, some suggestion on how to take care of yourself in a stressful time. Go see a therapist. That's what we're here for, not just when things are wrong.
Yeah, but people just think that you're here for when things are wrong or like when there is something that's completely broken down. And I think that what we're doing is we're coming to you when everything has completely destroyed.
Right.
So when there's like everything that was built up has completely shattered, and now it's like, okay, now help me rebuild it all.
Right.
Which
And nothing is
makes
wrong.
it hard for you guys.
You know, it's our job and we understand it. So when people come to us in that state, you know, we never judge.
Yeah.
Being a therapist, our number one thing is that we are non-judgmental because 100%. We want people to feel safe in, talking to us. But, it's good that people can understand that we are not just there for reactive measures. We're there for proactive measures as well.
That's so good.
So, yeah.
Proactive measures. Before you completely crash, see a therapist rather than wait until
something is really wrong and, things are happening. It's affecting other areas of your life, your work, your physical state. Yeah.
So how would you, or what would you suggest to us now as we're living in and through this pandemic? And a lot of us, our mental health has been shattered. I mean, I'll speak for myself. When COVID hit, all I did was scream. I said, I can't do this. I cannot be stuck in a house. I can't be told that the only time I can go outside is to go grocery shopping. That's for one. And then when you went to the stores, half of the stuff you needed,
you're lining up.
Find, you have to go with one direction. And all of that was like, no. I refuse. Like, my brain was like, does not compute. I cannot do this. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going outside.
Exactly.
And then it was just rough.
It was rough for me too. And that's one thing that I would say it's good for us to identify that it's difficult. Don't shy away from it. Don't pretend like everything is all good and dandy.
Yeah.
Identify that this is a stressful time for everyone, including yourself, right? And when you start to do that, you're now starting to accept and embrace the reality of things. And that's when you find yourself being able to accommodate and make yourself in a situation or a position where you can say, being that it's so difficult, maybe I need to start doing some stuff to make it less stressful for me.
That's actually really good. So identify what the situation you're in.
Right,
so,
and accept it for what it is.
So
it's difficult.
You gotta recognize that, you know what, this isn't easy. My finances, like, I'm stressing about that. Like, I don't know where my food's gonna come from. Whatever your situation is, so first step, identify that there's an issue.
Yep.
Once you've identified that, at least you'll know how to fix or put yourself in a mental state so you can assist yourself better. Rather than
or what resources to seek or what support system to tap into. So
but during COVID, were, I guess, therapists still open and available to the public?
Yeah.
So that is something I did not know.
Yeah. It changed us in a sense where it shifted from face-to-face therapy to virtual therapy. So now it's an adjustment for both the clients and the therapist, moving from seeing a therapist face-to-face, having that physical interaction, to now on virtual platforms. And for a lot of clients and for therapists, it was challenging because when you're talking to someone, like, majority of your understanding of what's communicating is body language, right? Yes. And those non-verbal cues. That was hard to pick up virtually. Honestly, it was hard. But I'm happy that we had that space where people who needed the support could still get it.
Yes.
So I want to say that my job skyrocketed during COVID.
That's
I
amazing.
got more clients during COVID.
100, and I can see why. Because
Yeah.
we are completely stressed and we are losing our minds. If I kid you not, I think one of the main reasons why I haven't lost my mind completely is this show. Is
That's
TMI.
good.
It's something else to do where it's not just my 9 to 5, and it's something where I can speak my mind. I can be as freely as I want. I can bring on guests like you and whoever else, where we can educate our community. We can talk about real life issues, because this is real. Our mental health is so real, and if there was ever a time that we see it, it's now.
It's now. It is now. And for a lot of people who have never really experienced having issues with their mental health, it took them by surprise. You know, it's no longer I'm just feeling stress. It's where the stress is now manifesting itself in physical ways,
Yes.
right? I'm getting sick, or I'm avoiding situations, or my friendships are broken, right? All of these different things are happening right now. And it hit a lot of people hard. It hit a lot of people really, really hard. And I'm happy that, you know, people like yourself and others saw the need where, okay, I'm having a hard time, so I can imagine other people are too.
Yes.
Maybe this is an avenue where people can come and get information and just support.
Yes.
You know, that you are not
100%.
alone.
Yeah, and
You're not alone.
I think the thing was too, it wasn't like it was a gradual change. You
It
know,
wasn't.
like if we ended 2019 and then like 2020 started and we slowly saw like, okay, COVID is happening, I feel like that would have been better. But it was like, woo, 2020 is gonna be my year. Boom,
That's
city
it.
lockdown,
Yep.
and it's like, okay, I'm
March
trapped.
came and the world just changed.
Listen, when I tell you I needed to get more pajamas and comfortable clothes, because at that point I was like, I didn't know that I was lacking in this department, because all I was buying was work clothes and social clothes. But when you have nowhere to go, what are you gonna wear?
You gotta get comfy.
You gotta get
You gotta get comfy.
And I think that was also a very good, I guess, avenue for my mental health.
Nice.
Just relaxing, recognizing that, okay, yes, I'm home, and then separating, because I work from home, separating my
Ooh.
9 to 5 from the rest of my evening. Because my husband will tell you, when COVID first hit, when that 9 to 5 job became 9 to 8, 9 to, like, I was not doing my regular scheduled hours. And that was because part of me felt like, you know what, okay, I'm not in the office. They can't physically see what I'm doing. So I don't want them to think that I'm not producing the same amount of work that I should be, or that they would have known exactly, been able to see me in the office, printing the documents, handing them stuff and all that stuff. But then when you're at home, they don't see that stuff. They don't know if you're actually typing and doing all that stuff. So I got so scared, so I overcompensated and I worked ridiculous hours. So for me, I had to be like, okay, it's a 9 to 5. When 5 o'clock comes, maybe I'll give yourself a leeway to 5:15. But if you exceed that, is a problem.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where my husband would be like, okay, it's 5:15, we're going outside. Because he knew that I was in the house from morning till 5. Now I need to go out and do stuff for myself.
Do something.
And I think that was also very important to have that support.
Right.
So not everybody may have that support. And I guess another side story, I have a friend who lives alone. And her family lives hours away.
Oh my, that's difficult.
That was so hard for her. I mean, it's not as bad now because the city kind of opened up, even though like we're shutting down again. But it was so hard for her to just like have any sort of interaction because her family was so far and transportation was, you know,
non-existent at one point.
So it's like, what does a person do in that state? And I guess now you could kind of give them tips since unfortunately we're going back in that position.
Unfortunately, you know, and that's the reality that we're in right now. But you said something that's gonna lead me into giving some of the tips.
Yeah.
You know, you said that your 9 to 5 turned into 9 to 8. And then you had to be very deliberate in saying, you know what, cut off time. That's you setting up clear boundaries, and that's going to be important during this time right now.
Yeah,
we have to create boundaries, and some of the boundaries are going to look different. You know, when we used to talk about boundaries, it used to be don't come in my personal space.
Yeah.
But no, boundaries have exceeded just personal space. Boundaries have exceeded. I need to set up boundaries between myself and my employer. I need to let my employer know that even though I'm working from home,
Yes.
these are the hours that I'm accessible.
Yes.
Anything after that, it must be an emergency.
And you know that may be a scary thing for some people, because it's like, okay, I'm one of the few that still has a job during this time. Do I really want to tell my employer this, knowing that there may be a chance that they may say, okay, well, we could find someone else?
Well,
like, there's the fear. There's still
there
that
is
fear.
a fear, and that fear is real for a lot of people. But you have to understand the scope of your work, right? And set those boundaries early on. So, and it's not too late either. So, you know you are in the job that it has the tendency to lead you into working overtime. It's good if you would talk to your supervisor and say, okay, I find myself doing these overtime hours.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm being paid for it, but I also find that my mental health is suffering as at the expense of me giving so many hours.
Yes.
And because I want to perform at my best at this job, and I respect the company, I think it's only fair for me to draw back a little bit and spend some time on my mental health.
I hope you guys took notes, because that's actually very good, and it was eloquently said.
Right.
So what you just said is so deep, because I actually had to take some days off of work. I felt like I was losing my mind.
Right.
So, as you know, because of COVID, a lot of employers, it was hard for you to, I guess, get your usual vacation time, because it's like, this is already crunch time, right? So, like, come on, like, give us your best. You give your all, and like you're saying, the boundaries. And sometimes you have to recognize within yourself, I'm talking to y'all, recognize your limits within yourself, and that you can only handle so much. And I was going to take just one day off. And I talked to one of my girlfriends at work, and she was like, no. Take today, take tomorrow, and come back on Monday. So that was the Thursday, the Friday. So I'd have the Saturday, Sunday, and come back on Monday. And to take those 4 days, 2 obviously being the weekend, was so good for me.
Wow.
And I know you're saying it's the boundaries and recognizing these things within ourselves. And unfortunately, not a lot of us can recognize these things within ourselves. A lot of us don't know when we should take our breaks, and don't know when we should take time to fix ourselves. And I think if we're honest with our employers, our supervisors, our managers, they'll understand it, because it's not like this pandemic is only affecting us as like
a specific group.
Exactly.
No, it's everyone.
Everybody. Like any color skin.
It has no boundaries.
No boundaries.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
COVID has no boundaries
and
at all.
I think that because fear, a lot of us are fearful, a lot of us aren't aware of what we need to do for our own mental health.
Right.
We keep going, we don't stop, and then unfortunately we have some sort of health problem that then puts us in a stop.
In an even worse situation that you wanted to be in. I always use this analogy. You can't pour from a broken or empty vessel. You will try, but if it's already broken, it's going to fall apart.
Yes.
If it's empty, nothing is going to come from it. So what do you need to do? You need to replenish that vessel.
Yes.
And by replenishing the vessel, it probably means taking a day or two, taking a couple hours for self-care, being intentional about taking time off from work. For those of us who aren't working, if full-time parents,
yes,
right, take some time away from the kids. And you're not a bad parent for doing that.
Yeah,
you're actually a good parent for doing that, because you know what? If your kids see you taking time off to take care of yourself, you're actually teaching your kids what it means to take care of themselves as toddlers, as younger kids.
That's
and
amazing.
You want to role model these things for your kids. So you always tell your kids, go take time out.
Yes.
But do they really understand what it means to take a time out? As an adult, model what it means to take a time out. Mommy, daddy needs to take a time out because I'm feeling a little tired, so I need to get a nap.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we have to be so intentional because every day the situation of the pandemic throws something else at us. Right now, if you're in Canada or Ontario, it's like we're going into a second lockdown. And that's going to be stressful for a lot of us.
Yep.
So this is a perfect time to start planning. planning what your self-care will look like. And
That's
self-care
really
is
good.
not selfish at all.
At all.
It's not
Self-care
selfish.
is not selfish. Like you're saying, that is so important. It's more than just the parents that
It
need
is
it.
more than
It's
that.
everyone in the family, because everyone's going through it. Imagine your kids not being able to see their friends and being all the activities that they're usually in during summer. You know, all the sport activities, swimming, the Y is closed, and everything shut down. So they're now going to school on a tablet. Imagine how that must be. You're working from home on your laptop and you get annoyed sometimes.
Can you imagine the kids? Can you
Sitting
imagine
in
the
front
kids?
of a screen. I know that if I were living through COVID as a child, I wouldn't be able to do it. I could not sit
They're
still
resilient.
I could not sit still as a child. I don't know what my parents would have had to do for me right now, but I would not be sitting at a screen like this and
They're very
and
good
tapping
at it.
to say, "I'm here, miss." It wouldn't have worked. I would have ran away. My screen would have been empty. So like you're saying, it's so much deeper, and it does affect everyone. And a lot of us don't think that it would affect the children, you know, because you're thinking, yeah, kids are resilient. They're not even gonna remember COVID anyways.
No.
But there's so many different aspects to this, like
Exactly.
the social aspect. Like, will they be able to socialize with people because they've been stuck online for so long? Like,
Right.
like my husband, his parents, that household, they have a lot of kids, right? So they're different age ranges. So the 4-year-old will obviously be able to talk to the 13 and older kids. But if you have a child that's an only child, and then they're the parents, how much interaction is that child getting with other kids?
Exactly.
None.
Exactly. You know, you talk about children, and a lot of people, you know, we always say yes, children are resilient, but resilience comes from having a supportive system in place. Supportive parents, supporting caregivers, supporting guardians or siblings, older siblings.
Yeah.
So don't take it for granted that your kids are stressed or that your kids are having a very difficult time getting used to this whole pandemic situation. Don't take it for granted. You know, find ways to support your children. You know, there are a lot of support to parents during this time, and many people may not know of it, but I can share some of those with you, and if you want to share it,
I
with
will
other,
share it with
yeah,
them.
I can share some of those supports that are in place because you know the government have identified that it's difficult for parents. Parents are working from home, kids are at school, at home. How is that going to happen? You get what I mean?
It just doesn't even sound like it makes sense.
It's hard.
You
It's
know,
very hard.
And people have often said, imagine if this had happened like in 1960 or 1970, school would have probably been non-existent, because by the time you mail the assignment and the schoolwork to the child, and then you get back your response, exactly, like the school year is over.
It's over.
You don't even know if you pass or fail.
But they still would have had issues.
100%.
They still would have
had issues. And I think that the reason why we're having this chat is to inform you that this is normal, because I think a lot of people also think that they're going through this alone.
You're not.
And we're letting you know that there are other people who are experiencing the same amount of stress, the same amount of fear, the same amount of discontent, the same amount of everything that you're going through. And we're just trying to provide you with information and a way to get some support system.
Yeah.
Right? Vennessa's here to educate us on the difference between specifically mental health and mental illness, which I'm sure a lot of you maybe did not know, because I was mind blown at the beginning of this video. And it's important to recognize where you are within your mental health, right? Because people may have thought prior to COVID that my mental health is amazing. Like, I am phenomenal. Like, superhero.
And that might have been true, right?
Exactly.
But things have changed, and accept the fact if something changed and you feel different.
100%.
Yeah.
Accept it, recognize it, and then, like you said, list the ways that you can better yourself or improve, or what steps you need to take. Like, if we are, not if, we are entering the second wave, what are we going to do to ensure that we're not as stressed, that we're not as impaired with our mental health? How can we better ourselves? I know that since the second wave, now I'm going to be better with my time, managing my time. Life balance is important.
It's important. It's important.
And I need everybody to hear that it is important, because we need to worry about bettering ourselves, not worry, but better ourselves so that we can, I guess, make it through this and recognize that this is a part of our entire body. So mental health, I mean, when you look at it, now I'm thinking deep. When you look at it, your mental health, your brain powers everything.
Everything. So you can be having some issues with your mental health, but it's not a mental illness, right?
You hear that?
So psychologists or medical doctors would be the one to diagnose a mental illness.
Yes.
And some of the popular mental illnesses that a lot of people know about, like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and then there are your personality disorders.
Yes.
So those are like the more severe type, but a lot of people struggle with depression and anxiety, especially during this time. So those are two of the most common type of mental illness that I think a lot of people would be able to identify with, and that's when the mental state have shifted to the point where it's affecting other areas of your life. So it's affecting your overall functioning. It's not just affecting the way you feel or the way you think and behave, but it's probably affecting your ability to work, your ability to be functional in a relationship. Yep. And when you see those issues starting to happen, you do want to talk to someone about it.
And I think a lot of people may go through depression and anxiety and not even be able to identify that they're going through it until after the fact. Right?
Which is the case for a lot of people. They realize that something is they've been seeing the symptoms, because I want to think that a lot of us, we see the symptoms. Yeah. But because of denial or fear, and just the stigma that's associated with mental illness, like, am I a weak person?
Yes.
Am I sick? Or what's wrong with me? All of those things are going to push you away from wanting to identify that, yes, there's something wrong, and I need to speak to someone about it and get the help I need. The help I need.
Back in 2015, I mean, I can identify it now, 5 years later, that I was depressed. But in 2015, I couldn't see that I was depressed. I wasn't acting my normal self, and that was because I got news that I was going to be able to do something, which didn't happen. And then I went on with life as if it was normal. At least I tried to. I went through my regular days. I stopped talking to certain friends, and these are things that weren't even red flags in my mind at the time. And now that I'm looking back at it, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I've read up on symptoms and all that stuff. I can identify that in 2015, I was depressed. I was going through something that I just couldn't understand, and I felt like I had no one to talk to.
Right.
Coupled with the fact that within our community, there's this stigma that, like, oh, just brush off yourself, and it's all right.
Okay.
Exactly. Like, you're thinking too big of it. Like, nothing's really wrong with you. Like, what's your problem? Go sleep or cry about it, and tomorrow you'll be okay. The brush it off. Like, brush off your shoulders, you'll be okay. Like, and I think that's the same thing, like, when we fall as kids, like, when you fall, you may want to cry about it, but they say, no, you're all right. You're okay. Get back up and do it again, which is fine. But when you're going through something that affects your mental health, it may not always be as easy as jumping off the ground after you've fallen.
It's never
and say,
easy as that.
I can go back into it.
Yeah, I always say to people that if someone shares with you that they are going through a difficult time with their mental health, and they've been diagnosed by a doctor that they have a mental illness, if the first response that comes to you seems so easy, think about it. Because you know why? We are not so comfortable with talking about mental illness. So if it comes to your mind to say, you'll be okay, don't say it. Instead of saying you'll be okay and giving an advice, say, how are you feeling? How has it been for you?
That is good.
As simple as that.
That is actually so good.
Yeah.
And that's important to note, because you often look at it and you'll be like, oh, like, it's okay, like, you'll be fine.
Right.
Because people are thinking of it not as how serious it is,
exactly.
but as, like, for argument's sake, a common cold. Like, You'll be fine.
Right.
Tomorrow you'll be better. Or just take this and you'll be okay.
And that's
Watch
not
this
what it
movie.
is.
Read this book. You just need to relax. Take a day and you'll be fine tomorrow. And like you're saying, that's not what it is.
That's not what it is.
There are so many people that I know personally that have gone through some sort of, or are going through some sort of mental illness or mental health issues, but they will not talk about it. And sometimes that makes me feel uneasy because I feel like we need to be, I mean, one, it's 2020, but two, we need to be more open to these things. We need to have platforms where we can speak about this because it's not just that person going through this issue.
It's a lot of people.
Exactly.
A lot of people.
It's not that I'm saying, okay, let's all come together and form a group of people that have these specific illnesses or mental health concerns. But I'm saying we need to let this be the norm. Just like as if you would tell someone, oh, I have a cold, or whatever the case may be. Talk to people. Like, I think people who may be having these mental health issues, mental illnesses, if they were to talk to people more about it, I think that could help the
it would
situation.
break down the stigma.
Exactly.
It surely would, because people need safe spaces to
Yes.
talk about what they're truly going through. And that's the key. We need to start creating safe spaces where people feel comfortable to share about what is it they're going through, and not for you listening to give a feedback or to give an advice,
Yes.
but for you to be a support
Yes.
and a safe person.
Yes.
You know, like you have a friend who can come and they say, I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
And then you know, if your response is, you always saying you don't feel well, that person will never
feel comfortable.
come up to you and say, you know, Deandra, I'm struggling with depression. They won't, because
Ever.
you have created a situation where you are already judging them
Yep.
for disclosing to you that they don't feel well.
And you're right, like that, when they have little stuff. So if I just don't feel well because maybe I'm not in the mood, okay, and that could also be a mental health thing. Like, I don't know the issues or things that may have gone through my day, or I haven't recognized the things that may have played a role in me not wanting to go out. I don't know if this happens to you guys, but sometimes randomly through the day, I'll just go into a mood.
Oh yeah, we are.
I just can't even explain.
Right, it's not
what's
you.
happening.
It's
Exactly.
literally something that's happening with me, and until I feel safe, I can't talk to you about it.
Exactly.
So for now, just accept the fact that I don't feel well.
Yes. And it's not even like I can't talk to you about it because like you would understand, but it's because you don't understand. So one, it's a safe space, and the second thing is I don't feel like you may understand me. And
Right.
you need to have that level of understanding where you know that, okay, I talked to you about this, and like you mentioned, you may not even have to say a word. You don't have to say anything back to me.
Nothing at all.
But just knowing that you've listened, and I feel like I just found someone
You've
I
been
can
heard.
vent to.
That's
Exactly.
it.
And that's it. And I know that when it's said there, that's where it's left.
That's where it's left. You know,
That's where
protecting
it's
people's
left.
privacy. So I'll say this: if someone comes to you and they're talking to you about something relating to their mental health, and you're concerned about it, it's okay to share that concern with the person, but do it in a way that's not belittling or
Yes.
degrading.
Yes.
But do it in a way where you're literally just saying, because I care about you, I've been seeing some signs, and I just wanted to, share it with you and to get your feedback.
Yes.
And who knows what the response will be from the person you're talking with.
Yep.
But that shows that you care. You care. You're not judging. You're not judging. You're just sharing that you are concerned because you've been seeing these signs.
Yes.
And if the person says to you, yes, I've been struggling with these things. If you are not a professional, and even if you're a professional, the mere fact that you're so close to that person, I would be concerned with conflicts of interest.
Yes.
So I would say to that person, have you thought about getting some help? And if so, would you like my support?
Yes.
And how can I support you?
Yes.
Leave it at that.
That is good. How can I support you? Would you like my support? Because not because they told you
Means that they want your support, right?
And the how can I support you, and whatever answer is given, if they say I need nothing from you, respect their
Comfortable with that.
boundaries. Exactly. But like you mentioned, if someone wants support, and let's say they want to contact you,
Mm-hmm.
how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can contact me through email at simplythriving.ca@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can put it up if you want.
I will put it up on the screen.
Send me emails. I do consultations. I have free consultations that are available for people who would really like to know how they can get support and the services that are available.
That's amazing, because again, we're going into the second wave, and
Right.
you want to prepare yourself. You want to
Which is
set
key.
yourself up so that your mental health is good, because as we've mentioned, your mental health impacts other parts of
It
your
does.
life. Prepare yourself is to speak to a friend, a family, or a professional. All of Vennassa's information will be placed down below in the description box, and it will be on the screen right here. This was so educational.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure to have you here, and more of us should be more aware of what our mental health is at this time and how we can better improve it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and click the bell. Thanks for watching TMI.
Bye.
We are thought-provoking.
Oh.
So thought-provoking,
Thought-provoking.
motivational,
Motivational.
inspirational.
Inspirational.
Bye.
Bye, guys.